No Adley Rutschman, no Jordan Westburg, no strikes thrown from Yarmir Geraldo in the ninth inning. And you know what? It doesn't matter. The Orioles come up with a wild win in 11 innings to sweep the Boston Red Sox. And I'll recap that amazing W coming up on this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast.
You are Locked On Orioles, your daily Baltimore Orioles podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, Orioles fans. Today is Wednesday, August 20th, 2025, and welcome back into the Locked On Orioles podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, I'm your host, Connor Newcomb. And coming up on today's episode, we are going to recap a wild, wacky, wonderful Orioles win 4-3 in 11 innings over the Red Sox on Tuesday night to complete the quick two-game sweep. I'll try to get you what seems like there needs to be 17 things you need to know, but I'll try to keep it to the 5 things you need to know from that one, including a good start from Tomoyuki Sugano, another big swing from Samuel Basallo, and some Orioles relievers stepping up huge. Then we'll talk about the negative side of Tuesday, which was some more injury issues, an update on Jordan Westburg and Adley Rutschman being scratched from the lineup with some more abdominal discomfort. And finally, we've got a bunch of minor league news and rehab assignment news to get to as well at the end of the show. But that's all coming up on this jam-packed episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast, which is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. I am recording, just after the final out of Tuesday night's win for the Orioles and kind of still running on fumes after that one. And we know this Orioles team, unless it were to make one of the greatest runs in Major League history, they are out of it. We know even with the win on Tuesday night, they still sit at 59-67 on the season. But that win, and honestly, these two nights with this mini two-game sweep over the Red Sox at Fenway, is bringing back the feeling with this team. And it's more than likely too late here in 2025, but it's making you feel better things about 2026. And let's get to it. Final score in 11 innings on Tuesday night is the Orioles 4 and the Boston Red Sox 3 to sweep a two-game set for the Orioles, who just continue to play some fantastic baseball. They have now won 6 out of 7 and are looking like the team they should have been this year. And I'm going to get you the 5 things you need to know from the extra innings W on Tuesday night. And the first thing you need to know all the way back when at the beginning of this game, Tomoyuki Sugano continued to pitch pretty well. Everything he threw in this game was basically on the corners. His splitter was good. He got some swing and miss on that pitch. And his final line, 5 innings, 1 unearned run on 5 hits, 3 strikeouts and no walks on 85 pitches for Sugano. And would you look at that? After that really bad stretch in the middle of the season, Sugano has turned it around. In his last 5 starts, 28 1/3 innings, 22 hits, 6 earned runs, 22 strikeouts to 6 walks, and just 1 homer. That's a 1.91 ERA his last 5 times out. And he's got his season ERA back under 4. It sits at 3.97. And look, if he's on the corners, if he's not walking guys, if he's keeping the ball in the ballpark, all things he did Tuesday, all things he's been doing the last 5 starts, he's going to be, even at 35, a good big league pitcher. And he caps off what was an amazing last time around the rotation for the Orioles starting pitchers. Brandon Young, Cade Povich, Dean Kramer, Trevor Rogers, Tomoyuki Sugano in the last 5 games. They combined to throw 32 innings, allow just 4 earned runs on 18 hits with 33 strikeouts to 5 walks. That's a 1.13 ERA. And ERA-wise, the Orioles rotation has been the best in Major League Baseball over the past month, and Sugano continued that on Tuesday. Now, the second thing you need to know from this one is that 1 run that scored against Sugano, I mentioned it was unearned, came across in a fairly odd way. Sugano allowed a leadoff single to Connor Wong in the 3rd inning, and then Sugano rolled what looked like a perfect double play ball, a hard-hit ground ball right at Jackson Holliday at second off the bat of Roman Anthony. Should have easily been a double play, except Holliday boots it, can't get any outs, and all of a sudden it's first and second and nobody out. And There's a little bit of worry about Jackson defensively at second base right now. Came into Tuesday's game, -4 outs above average. His StatCast defensive metrics, only 4 current second basemen in the big leagues have been worse metrically at that position than Jackson this year. And he's made a couple of rough looking plays lately. Now, you got to remember, he's still 21 and he still came up basically all playing shortstop until right at the end there at AAA. He played some second base because the O's knew with Gunnar Henderson that was going to be his position in the big leagues. And Holiday did turn a huge double play later in this game, which is certainly a plus for him. I'm not super worried. He's going to get better. There's just been some rougher plays lately than there were early in the season. But Sugano's trying to wiggle out of it. He gets it to second and third, 2 outs. The run hasn't scored. And then he steps off once and he steps off again. Remember that third disengagement when you step off, because of the new rules, you either got to pick the guy off or it's a balk and the runners get to advance. And Connor Wong, smartly knowing that he's on third and there's already been 2 disengagements, he takes off, kind of bluffs a steal of home. And when you're a pitcher, the instinct when you're looking at a guy at third who takes off is to step off the rubber, go at him, and make sure he doesn't score. Well, because Sugano stepped off the rubber, that was his third disengagement. Wong went back to third. They didn't pick him off. And that is a balk, balking home the run, who was only out there because of an error. Like, it was 2 outs. The inning should have been over had there not been the error by Holiday. And instead, Sugano balks home a run. That's why it wasn't an earned run. And it was kind of crazy because that's the first time I think I've seen the 3 disengagement rule happen with a runner on third and the run actually score. I'm not sure if it's the first time it's happened since the rules went into play, but it's the first time I've seen it. And for Sugano, it was even crazier. Tomoyuki Sugano is approaching almost 2,000 career innings pitched between NPB and MLB. That is his first balk ever. Between Japan and the U.S., he does it there. Not even on a real balk, really, just on a 3 disengagement rule, and it allowed that 1 run to score. But he settled down, got the final out of the third, put up zeros in the 4th and 5th, and pitched really well again on Tuesday. Third thing you need to know from Tuesday's win is that Manzolino did pull Sugano kind of early and go to the bullpen, and I guess in the end it worked out, not as perfectly as he would have liked. It almost did, but it was certainly a move made by Manzolino, because Sugano was only at 85 pitches through those 5 innings of the 1 unearned run, and he wasn't laboring a whole lot in those 4th and 5th innings, but the bullpen was well rested coming in, and the Orioles have the off day here on Wednesday, so you can afford to go a little bit deeper into the pen. Now, I probably would have let Sugano go back out there for at least the 6th, just because of the current state of this Orioles bullpen. But it was 3, 4, 5 due up in the order for a 3rd time. There were 2 lefties due up. So Tony Manzolino goes to Keegan Aiken in the 6th with a 3-1 lead, and he pitches well. He goes 6 up, 6 down, retiring the side in the 6th and 7th innings. And for Keegan Aiken, who for a while there, a couple of years ago when he was first moved to the bullpen, he was very much a multi-inning guy, but that's kind of gone away. That was just his 3rd outing of the season of at least 2 innings for Keegan Aiken. His last one was May 14th against the Twins. The other one was April 5th against the Royals. Neither of those were a clean 6 up, 6 down, but it is the 8th time in Aiken's career he's gone 6 up, 6 down out of the bullpen, first time since August 19th of last year at Citi Field. But that was kind of vintage Aiken, what he used to do when he first moved from the rotation to the bullpen. So it's 3-1 going to the 8th, and then Tony Manzolino goes to Cade Stroud because he's been pitching really well. He put up a 0 with a 3-run lead in the 8th last time he was out there. So it's like, you know what? Let's give him another high leverage spot. This is his highest leverage spot of the year since the Orioles added him to the bullpen. This one, not so good. Single Connor Wong, single Roman Anthony, wild pitch, walks Alex Bregman, and the bases are loaded with nobody out. And Manzolino says, that's enough. He faced his minimum 3 batters. He's gone, and in comes Rico Garcia to make his 4th outing out of the Oriole bullpen this year. He had barely warmed up at all, because that's where the bullpen is at this point. You're going to Rico Garcia, bases loaded, no out, up by 2 in the bottom of the 8th. And you know what Rico Garcia did? Casually strike out Jarren Duran, Trevor Story, and Masataka Yoshida back to back to back to escape the jam without a run scoring. Duran was 3 straight nasty changeups. Story was back-to-back incredible sliders. And then he went 97 to get Yoshida to swing through a 2-2 pitch to get the K. Garcia fired up. The Orioles dugout fired up. Like, what an incredible moment for him to be bouncing around and throughout his career and get this big spot with the Orioles and get those strikeouts. for this bullpen. Tony Mansolino just saying, you know what? Next man up. We don't have a setup man. We don't have a closer. We have Rico Garcia right now. And him getting those outs was just tremendous. He's changed himself. He had some really good stuff and some good numbers earlier this year with the Mets before they DFA'd him just because they added a bunch of relievers at the deadline and had a roster crunch. The Orioles are better for it. Garcia's been good. That was something else, what he did in that 8th inning. So then they go to the 9th. And it's like, okay, who's going to close the game? You've already used Aiken. Cano hasn't been great. How about Yaromil Geraldo looking for his first career save, right? He was really good in the 9th inning on Friday and Saturday in Houston, put up the 0 to end the game after the Brandon Young almost perfect on Friday, and then went 1-2-3 in a 4-4 game in the bottom of the 9th Saturday against the middle of the Astros order to send it to extra innings. So you're like, and Mansolino said before the game that Geraldo wants these 9th inning chances. So he gets it, and it doesn't go as well this time. 5-pitch walk to Romy Gonzalez, and then first pitch fastball to the newest Red Sox, Nathaniel Lowe, who socks it into the right center field seats for a 2-run homer to tie the game at 3, just 6 pitches into the 9th. A blown save on Geraldo's first chance. And then he struck out the next 2 batters using just some dominant-looking changeups. So you're like, all right, he settled in, and then he stopped throwing strikes. He then, with 2 outs and nobody on in a 3-3 game, walks the next 3 hitters to load the bases with nobody out. The Orioles have no one warming in the bullpen behind him. And this is one of these things I've talked about since the Orioles traded away all those relievers at the deadline and kind of replaced them with a lot of inexperienced arms in the bullpen. I talked about how, especially because the Orioles, they're out of it, right? The development is over winning at this point for the O's, even though they're winning a lot lately. You're going to give these guys tough chances. Sometimes they're going to come through like Geraldo did on Saturday, and sometimes they're not, like on Tuesday. But either way, you're going to let them work through it. And Mansolino basically said to Yaromil Geraldo, hey, no matter what, this is your 9th inning. Either you save it, we go to extras, or, you walk 4 in a row and the Red Sox end the game. And he got behind Trevor Story 2-1. And then somehow he got him to ground out to escape that jam and get it to extras. But hey, it wasn't pretty. It was 34 pitches and 22 balls to 12 strikes. You don't love to see that, but he let him work through it, let him get into and out of a jam. Geraldo's going to learn from that and get better from that scenario as he tries to win a spot in the bullpen for next year. So Orioles face the rejuvenated 37-year-old, maybe best version ever of Aroldis Chapman, who puts up a 0 in the top of the 10th. And then it's Yennier Cano, who hasn't looked great the last couple times out, hasn't had a great season. It's a tie game. There's a zombie runner on second. It's up to Cano to get the game to the 11th. And I'll be honest, I had left the living room. I'd gone upstairs into the office. I'd sat down ready for Cano to give up the walk-off and start recording. Cano loads the bases and gets Abraham Toro to ground 1 to Jackson Holliday, who makes a great play to turn the double play. Remember, 12th inning, Saturday night in Houston, same scenario. Jordan Westburg gets a ground ball, tries to turn a double play instead of going home. They can't turn it, and the Astros walk it off. Now, this was a different situation. Ball was hit harder. Ball was hit to second instead of third. But the Orioles turn the double play this time, get out of the jam, and push it to the 11th. There were ups. There were downs from some of these relievers, but a lot of learning was had in this game for the Orioles. 4th thing you need to know from this crazy win is that the Orioles got the 3 runs they initially needed all in the 5th inning. Started with a Jackson Holliday double off the monster, and then Luis Vasquez's first career walk on 4 pitches, and that knocked Walker Buehler out of the game, the Red Sox starter, who's really been struggling this season on his 1-year deal. Just 4+ innings for Buehler. They brought in the left-hander Justin Wilson, pretty aggressive bullpen managing from Alex Cora as he's in a pennant race here. And Ryan Mountcastle came through. RBI single off the lefty Wilson to tie the game at 1. Mountcastle, who's mashed lefties in his career, read a career 124 WRC plus against left-handed pitching. But that WRC plus is down at just 54 against lefties this year. Some is because he's missed so much time with injury, but just a weird year for him. Like, still only has 1 extra base hit against a lefty all season, but he got it done there. And then Colton Cowser off the lefty smacks an RBI double off the monster to put the Orioles up 2-1. Cowser with the same struggles, hitting just 155 with a 45 WRC plus against left-handers this year coming into the game. That was just his 4th extra base hit against a lefty off on the year, but it was a big one. Then a wild pitch brings Mountcastle home for the 3rd run, and the Orioles had the lead they thought could get him all the way, got him all the way to the 9th, and then the game was tied. But the fifth and final thing you need to know from the Orioles' wild 4-3 win over the Red Sox on Tuesday night is that the O's found a way to somehow win this game in the 11th inning. Cano gets the double play ball to send it to 11. Dylan Carlson leads off the 11th, grounds a ball over to first. It gets Jeremiah Jackson over to third base with one out, at least a productive out. And then Tony Mansolino goes to his bench. Samuel Basallo, who was not in the starting lineup on Tuesday night, we'll get to that in a moment, comes in as the pinch hitter for the right-handed hitting catcher Alex Jackson, who got the start against the righty reliever Garrett Whitlock out there, and he brings in the big lefty Samuel Basallo. And Basallo fouls off a changeup, swings through a sinker. It's runner on third, one out. It's 0-2. Whitlock throws a devastating changeup down and away, way out of the zone, 7 inches below the strike zone. And Basallo, this is what he can do. He makes contact on a lot of pitches out of the zone. He can get to pitches, and he just reaches that bat out and just touches that ball up the first base line, just far enough away from the catcher and the pitcher. Although Basallo was thrown out at first, Jeremiah Jackson able to scamper home on the RBI ground out to give the Orioles a 4-3 lead. Doesn't get the hit, but he gets the RBI. And Basallo, who had 2 ribbies Sunday, 2 ribbies Monday, now 1 on Tuesday, becomes the first Oriole hitter to have at least 1 RBI in his first 3 games with the team since, we're going to absolutely remember a guy right now, since Ryan Hughes in 2010. Ryan Hughes, former Rays draft pick, who came over to the Orioles in the player to be named later in the Greg Zahn trade in 2009, played 14 games with the Orioles in 2010. That was his only big league action and had at least 1 RBI in his first 3 games with the O's. If you remember the Ryan Hughes 14-game era of 2010, you are a Connor Newcomb level sicko, but just absolutely, that was from the Masson broadcast, had to get that remember some guys situation in there. But Basallo gets it done. It's 4-3. We're going to the bottom of the 11th. There's only 2 relievers left in the Oriole bullpen. It's either Corbin Martin or Grant Wolfram. And Martin's the one who does have a save this season. So Tony Mansolino goes to Corbin Martin, who was better in his last outing, but has not been very good lately since he got that awesome save against the Blue Jays a couple of weeks ago. And the first batter, sack bunt, gets the runner over to third with 1 out. They're looking to tie the game. And then just a wild play ensues. Like, I still can't believe what happened. Roman Anthony hits a shallow fly ball to center field. The pinch runner, Nate Eaton, with good speed, is on third base. And I'm thinking, okay, Martin's going to give up the run on the sac fly, 4-4, just get it to the 12th and keep this thing going. Cowser settles under it, makes the catch in center field, fires a ball home that seemingly was closer to landing at Oriole Park than it was landing close to home plate. Samuel Basallo did a nice job going way up the line to just catch this ball in the air. And you turn around, and Nate Eaton is still standing on third base. I have no idea what happened. He could have crawled home and been safe. And I don't know if it was a miscommunication between him and the Red Sox third base coach. Maybe he left and then thought he left early and had to go back to the bag to re-tag at third. But either way, he did not try to score, stayed at second, just an absolute gaffe. Again, a play that the Orioles would have made earlier this year. And this time it's a team that's in the playoff race making that kind of mistake against the Orioles. So it stays 4-3. Corbin Martin facing Alex Bregman. And Mansolino just says, go get Alex Bregman. And what does he do? He gets Bregman to pop up to short on a 3-2 fastball for the final out to secure his second save with the O's and an unbelievable 4-3 win. There's been some crazy wins by the O's this year. This one is right up there with all of them. I mean, the Orioles end up using 6 relievers in this game. They cover 6 innings. They combine to walk 6 batters and strike out just 5, but only allow 3 hits. They get just enough offense from Basallo. Again, it's unfortunately too little too late, but the Orioles are playing some fun baseball right now. It makes your heart start to pound, especially when that bullpen gets in there. But what a freaking win that was for the Orioles. And they win it and they sweep the series. And what made it even more impressive is that not only did they not have Jordan Westburg back, they also got another piece of bad injury news on Adley Rutschman before Tuesday's game. We're going to give you a bunch of injury updates on the Orioles coming up next. But first, this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast is brought to you by Game Time. Have you ever decided at the last minute to head to a ball game with friends or family? Maybe it's game day and you suddenly realize you want to be in the stands. That's exactly where Game Time comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last minute tickets without the stress. With the money you save on tickets, you can splurge on food, drinks, merch, or even a bigger group to come with you. Game Time makes it possible. Game Time makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app, they actually drop the closer you get to first pitch. And they've got incredible last minute deals, clear seat views, and a lowest price guarantee that takes the worry out of buying. And Game Time is the official ticketing partner of Locked On MLB, making it easy to browse the app for an exciting upcoming MLB game. Maybe you're looking to get to the Beavers and Basayo home debut on Thursday. Maybe you want to come say hello to me. I'll be there Monday night, hoping to time it out for the Kyle Bradish return against the Red Sox. But either way, you can get great deals at Game Time. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. So the Orioles got a pretty unbelievable win over the Red Sox in 11 innings on Tuesday to complete the quick little 2-game sweep. But for the Orioles, it wasn't all good stuff on Tuesday. We got some injury updates, some good, some bad. I'm going to run through them. Let's start with the bad one. Adley Rutschman was scratched from the Orioles lineup about 3 hours before first pitch. Rutschman removed from the lineup with what the Orioles are calling right abdominal discomfort. Now, Adley did not play on Monday, but that was a scheduled day off. I think he started to feel it on Monday, but he wasn't not in the lineup because of the abdomen issues. Those things were kind of separate at that point. But he felt the soreness apparently again on Tuesday, and he was pulled from that initial starting lineup. Now, Tony Mansolino said before Tuesday's game, Adley will get checked out today on Wednesday to determine the severity of the injury. And remember, this is another thing popping up for Adley, who missed about 5 weeks from mid-June to late July with a left oblique strain, which was his first ever trip to the injured list in the majors. Now, the abdomen that's right around the oblique, it could be an oblique issue. This is on the other side. That was a left oblique strain. This is right abdominal discomfort. So on one side, it's better. It's not a re-injury. On the other side, it's still not great. It's a similar type of injury that Adley has sustained for the second time in basically 2 months here. Now, Alex Jackson came into the game and instead was the starting catcher. He did throw out a runner. He's now caught 5 of 12 runners trying to steal. He's having a great season as the backup and now kind of third catcher on this Orioles team. And Samuel Basayo was not in the lineup. And even after Adley was scratched and Basayo being a catcher, he still was not in there. And that made sense, right? I talked about it in abundance on Tuesday's episode. Make sure to go back and check that one out if you have not already. But, you know, it is a spot where the Orioles have 4 players for 3 spots between Rutschman, Basayo, Ryan Mountcastle, and Coby Mayo. One of those guys is going to have to sit every day. And if you think about it, since Basayo debuted on Sunday, Adley on Monday, Mayo on Monday, and Mountcastle on Sunday have all sat at least once, and Basayo had not. So it was his turn on Tuesday to not be in the lineup. And he still played, still pinch hit, still had the game-winning RBI in the top of the 11th inning, but he wasn't in the starting lineup. And as I talked about on Tuesday, he's not going to be in there every day. The Orioles are going to find ways to play him, catcher, first base, DH, whatever it may be, but they're still going to want to play Rutschman and Mayo and Mountcastle, and it's going to be tough. It's pretty much impossible to get all 4 of those guys in the lineup at the same time. I think the only weird part was that Mansolino said on Sunday when Basayo was called up that he would DH Sunday, catch Monday, and then DH again on Tuesday, and they ended up not being in the lineup. It might have had something to do with the Westburg injury kind of throwing a whole bunch of things off and the Orioles changing plans. That's totally reasonable to think that happened between Sunday and Tuesday. It's just odd for a manager to like tell you 3 days in advance where a guy's going to play in the lineup. It's certainly not something that's generally done, but I understand they're not going to just throw Basayo in there to catch 2 hours before the game, a guy he's never caught in Sugano, a guy with a even more serious language barrier than there usually is for Basayo and his pitchers. That is a tough spot to put him in. It made the most sense to just throw Alex Jackson in there, who's not going to play a whole lot, so a good spot for him to get into the lineup now as he is the third catcher, and we wait on Adley, right? If Adley goes down, we're going to see a lot more Basayo. He's not going to catch every day. We're going to see some more Alex Jackson if Adley does have to go on the injured list, but Basayo's going to catch even more, and he's going to certainly learn on the job as this season goes on. For Jordan Westburg, he was not available in Tuesday's game, but also did not yet go on the injured list. Westburg, who left Monday night's game in the first inning after rounding second base awkwardly. It was a right ankle issue. Mancelino did say Tuesday, though, the soreness that Westburg is feeling, not as bad as they initially thought it would be. O's have the off day here on Wednesday. Westburg will then test it again on Thursday, and basically then they will determine whether he needs to go on the injured list or he can stay off the IL and come back soon. But they haven't done any imaging yet, which is probably a good sign. Now, the only thing that was a little surprising was I talked about how this would open some time for Jeremiah Jackson, who's usually an infielder. The O's have just kind of moved him to the outfield. It would give him a chance to start some games over there at third base because Coby Mayo is pretty much a first baseman at this point. But Luis Vasquez, who came into the game on Monday, also started the game at third base and hit second in the order after the lineup shuffle with Rutschman out of there for some reason. But he played at third base. Jackson came in as a pinch hitter later in the game, but it was Luis Vasquez. So maybe the O's just value the defense of Vasquez so much, and he can handle the bat a little bit, that he will play there. I'd like to see Jeremiah Jackson get a start at third base if Westburg still is not available by Thursday, but it was Vasquez in there. Speaking of infielders, they're trying to move to the outfield, Jorge Mateo is going to begin a rehab assignment tonight in AAA Norfolk. Norfolk was rained out on Tuesday, so they will play a doubleheader today. Most likely Mateo will probably only play in one of those two games. Mateo's been out since June 7th. It's been a while. It was originally left elbow inflammation. He kind of re-injured that elbow he had surgically repaired last year with the Tommy John that caused him to miss the final 2 months of the season. He began a rehab assignment on June 25th, so he's only out for 3 weeks or so. But then in a rehab game in AAA June 29th, he hurt his hamstring pretty severely, where he's been out since then. That's a pretty big hamstring injury to keep you out for 2 months, kind of similar to what Westburg and Mountcastle have had this year. The 30-year-old Mateo has played in 32 games this year, 65 plate appearances, has just a 41 WRC plus. He does have a $3.55 million club option for 2026. The O's could decline it, make him a free agent, could pick it up and bring him back for one more year. I'd rather just be done with Mateo. Even with Ramon Arias traded, I still think a guy like Jeremiah Jackson and Luis Vasquez fit this roster better. But we're probably going to see him back at some point in the next couple of weeks. Probably see Luis Vasquez lose his roster spot. And Mancelino said he's going to play more outfield than infield on his rehab assignment. We've seen him play the outfield. It's not good. Just, I don't know. I don't know with Mateo. Maybe we can just ride it out the rest of this year and they decline the option. It's done there. It's run its course, but yeah, it seems like he's going to be back soon. Speaking of back soon, Albert Suarez made his second rehab start in AAA Norfolk on Sunday. Actually, his first one was in AA, this one in AAA. 3 innings, 1 hit, 1 run, a strikeout, 2 walks, 39 pitches for Suarez, who threw 42 pitches in his first outing. Threw all 5 of his offerings, fastball, good velo, 94 to 96, missed some bats. Of course, Suarez has been out since March with a shoulder injury, has pitched in just 1 game for the Orioles this year after that tremendous 2024 season. The Orioles have said that Suarez will come back as a multi-inning reliever instead of a starter, so they don't have to build him up as much. The word is that Suarez is going to get 1 more start, probably this Friday or Saturday in AAA. And then after that, he'll make a few shorter relief appearances with shorter time between them to kind of get him ready for a bullpen role. And then it might take until, end of August, beginning of September that we see Suarez back. And then, who knows what his role will be next year if he's back next year. But good for him that he will get back to the big leagues this year from that injury and get to pitch a little bit and help himself try and win a spot on next year's team. Kyle Bradish is going to make his final rehab start in AAA tonight. Not sure if it's going to be game 1 or game 2 of the doubleheader, but it will be Trey Gibson and Kyle Bradish. That is much watched TV in AAA, especially with the Orioles having the off day. And all Mancelino has said so far is that Bradish will return sometime next week against the Red Sox. He said either August 25th, 26th, or 27th. That is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. If he does start tonight, that would put him on regular rest for Monday, so it could be any of the 3 days. I have tickets to Monday, so I'm hoping it's Monday. But one of those 3 home games against the Red Sox, my best guess would probably be Tuesday at this point, just to give him that extra day that he does return for the Orioles. But hey, as long as all goes good and 1 more rehab start, we are going to see Kyle Bradish back on a big league mound for the Orioles. I am incredibly excited for that to happen, excited to watch his rehab start tonight. And then Tyler Wells, he's going to start Thursday afternoon in AAA. He's going to make one more rehab start in AAA after that, and then he will return to the Orioles roster as well. Those are your injury updates. We got a whole bunch of minor league updates to run through. We're going to kind of speed round those in the final segment to finish off the show. Coming up next. So for the Orioles, to get the win Tuesday, had some bad injury news, some good, some bad, but we got some minor league updates to get to in a final segment of the show. Just wanted to run through some interesting things happening down on the farm. Start with a couple of roster moves. Jordan Adams, who was up with the O's for a bit as a reserve outfielder a couple of times this year, was optioned back to AAA last week. The Orioles quietly put him on waivers. He cleared waivers and did accept his outright assignment to AAA, so he remains in Norfolk. He's just no longer on the 40-man roster. It was full, so that does open up one 40-man spot for the Orioles, whether that's Kyle Bradish or Mateo or someone else soon coming off the 60-day IL. That does open a spot. Greg Allen, who was picked up by the O's for a couple of weeks, then DFA'd when Dylan Beavers got here. He cleared waivers. He has elected free agency instead of accepting his assignment at AAA, so it may have been a short-lived time for Greg Allen in the Orioles system. How about Carter Baumler, who was promoted to Double-A Bowie this week, I believe first reported by our friends over at Orioles on the Verge. Baumler, a 23-year-old right-handed pitcher, fifth-round pick out of a high school in Iowa, all the way back in the 2020 COVID draft. Now, he had thrown only 49 professional innings in 4 minor league seasons coming into this year since being drafted. It's just been injuries galore for Baumler. Got Tommy John in October of 2020, then had shoulder surgery after the 2022 season. He's barely pitched at all, but he is finally really fully healthy for the first time in the O's system, and he looks good. As a relief pitcher this year, 32 innings, a 2.53 ERA, 31% strikeout rate to a 12% walk rate. Shout out to Steve Molesky, his Substack, for a good breakdown on Baumler's stuff. It's a fastball in the mid-90s up to 98, good slider, good curveball, and he has this splitter he calls the tumbleweed. It's the pitch that Kyle Bradish, who was recently released, also threw in this system. It works like a splitter, but it's thrown a little differently, moves a little differently, kind of tumbles out of the zone. It's some nasty, nasty stuff with swing and miss. It's the pitcher the Orioles always thought Baumler could be. It's just that he's been moved from starting to relief because of the injuries. And Baumler is once again Rule 5 draft eligible this offseason. Now, he was eligible last year. Obviously, the Orioles didn't add him to the 40-man roster. He was injured. He'd had so many injuries. He had barely even pitched in high A at that point. There was no chance another team was going to pick him up in the Rule 5 draft. But this year, finishing the year pitching in Double-A with stuff looking this good at age 23, the Orioles are going to consider protecting him. It's going to be a really, really interesting decision whether or not they add him to the 40-man. But if they do, Baumler's got a shot to pitch out of the Oriole bullpen at some point in 2026, maybe in the second half of the year. Would be a really good addition, a great comeback for him because finally healthy and that stuff is looking great. Speaking of guys being moved to the bullpen and the stuff looking great, Chayce McDermott is finally making that full move to the bullpen. Recently was the Orioles' #1 pitching prospect. Not quite the case anymore. Came over in the Trey Mancini deal. The right-handed pitcher is now 26 years old. He's made 3 big league appearances so far, 1 last year, 2 earlier this year as a starter. But he missed all of spring training with a lat issue. His first minor league game was April 27th this year. Missed the end of last year with a shoulder issue. Had a good AAA start on July 10th, but all it did was lower his ERA to 6.97 in 12 starts in Norfolk this year. Then he missed a couple of weeks with a little elbow thing, didn't turn out to be serious, and he came back as a relief pitcher in AAA on July 26th. Now, the first outing did not go well. He gave up 5 runs in an inning and a third, but the stuff was already looking better. And since that blow-up outing, he pitched again on July 30th. Since then, out of the Norfolk bullpen, 7 innings, 5 hits, 1 run, 8 Ks, 3 walks for McDermott. The stuff is up. The walks are down. He looks completely different. The fastball velo is up from 93.8 as a starter to 96.7 and touching 99 as a reliever. Swing and miss is way up on that pitch. The spin rate is up. He's throwing more cutters with a 47% whiff rate. Just a lot more strikes in general. Has not allowed a barrel as a reliever yet in this role. I mean, he's already on the 40-man roster. The Orioles are absolutely, I think, going to give him a look in the big league bullpen before this season ends. I would almost guarantee we're going to see him at some point in September. And my prediction is McDermott is a big part of this Orioles bullpen in 2026. I had been for the last probably 6 months or so calling for this move, basically calling McDermott the right-handed DL Hall. With the command, the injury is just going to be better long-term in the bullpen. The O's made the move. It is looking very, very good so far. Excited to see him back in the big leagues. Couple more pieces of news. Kiefer Lord. Remember Kiefer Lord, 23-year-old righty, Orioles third-round draft pick out of Washington in 2023. Barely pitched that year after the draft, then got an elbow injury, then got Tommy John in July of 2024, missed the whole 2024 season. He is reportedly going to be returning, and it looks like, not sure if confirmed yet, but looks like he's going to make his season debut and essentially his organizational debut in Delmarva on Wednesday night. Now, he's going to work himself back. It's not going to be a full go probably until 2026, but Lord is this guy who was at a small college, was throwing like 88, worked his velo all the way up to the upper 90s, has great stuff, one of the higher Mike Elias draft picks for a pitcher ever. Really fun to see him coming back from this injury. And then we had 3 minor league releases, again, with the Orioles bringing in so many draft picks, so many prospects from the trade deadline. Unfortunately, they had to release a lot of minor leaguers. I've just been giving each of these guys a little shout out as they go. We got 3 more minor leaguers released over the past couple of days. First one, 24-year-old right-handed pitcher Wyatt Cheney, who is the Orioles' 10th round pick in 2022 out of McLennan Community College in Texas. Cheney had missed all of 2024 with injury, came back this year and pitched solid in Aberdeen, like a 2.51 ERA in 32 innings, 31% K rate, but a super high 17% walk rate. Got the bump up to Double-A in 5 innings, gave up 6 runs on 8 hits with a couple of homers. He gets released. Wishing Wyatt Cheney the best if he wants to continue his pro career. One of my favorite Orioles minor leaguers released as well. 26-year-old utility man Anthony Servideo was released this week. 3rd round pick by the Orioles in 2020 out of Ole Miss. I actually got to know Anthony a little bit. He played for the Baltimore Redbirds summer ball team that I broadcasted for in the summer of 2018. One of the best infield defenders I have ever seen. The bat was great in college. It just never came around in professional ball. He got to Triple-A last year, but he spent all of this year in Double-A. Great defender, plays the infield, plays the outfield, just never really hit, right? He was great as a hitter in Delmarva to start his career in 2021. Since then, it's been pretty bad. In Double-A this year, 350 plate appearances, he hit just 156. Wish all the best to Servideo moving forward. And the final release is right-handed pitcher Alejandro Mendez, was a 2019 international class signing by the Orioles out of the Dominican Republic, pitched 3 consecutive years in Delmarva before finally getting the bump up to Aberdeen this season. Didn't go well. 21 innings as a reliever, 6.86 ERA, 28 strikeouts, but 27 walks and 4 hit batters, just never reined in the command. And again, wishing Alejandro the best in his next baseball or life experiences. But that'll do it for today's episode. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the Locked On Orioles podcast here on YouTube and, of course, wherever you listen to your pods, Apple, Spotify, whatever it may be. It all helps the show. And you can always email me. You want to talk ball, mailbag questions, whatever it may be, comments on the show, lockedonorioles@gmail.com. Initially, I was going to do a mailbag tonight, but my schedule changed around a little bit. So we're going to have a bit of a different episode with the Orioles having the off day here on Wednesday. It looks like that columnist from the Baltimore Banner, Kyle Goon, is going to join me here on the Locked On Orioles podcast for the first time. We're going to talk about some of the changes the Orioles have made this year, not necessarily on the field or with baseball operations, but with the other stuff, the fan experience, the video board, the ballpark, and the ticket changes as well. He's written some great stories about that over the past couple of weeks. We're going to talk to Kyle about some of the issues the Orioles are having on that realm. And if you've had issues there, send me an email, put it in the comments here. I'll maybe throw it in with Kyle on tomorrow's episode. But until then, I'm Connor Newcomb, and this has been the Locked On Orioles podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.